Hey guys, hey, it's Dr. Jerry here with Mills Chiropractic and Wellness Center. And in this episode, our webinar series that we're doing on immunity, we're going to talk a little bit about autoimmunity. In our second episode, or first, however you want to look at it, we talked about inflammation and how we want to have balance between a pro-inflammatory state versus an anti-inflammatory state, and how most people are living in a pro-inflammatory state. In the second video, we talked about immune resilience versus immune tolerance. And so, if you have an autoimmune condition, you don't automatically assume that you also have low resistance. I see patients all the time that have an autoimmune condition and they'll, say, hey, I developed this autoimmune condition about 10 years ago, but I haven't had a cold or a flu or a sniffle or anything in the last 10 years since I developed that autoimmune condition. And now on the flip side, I'll have patients that will have an exact opposite experience. And with autoimmunity, what's happened is you've lost your tolerance, right? You're not recognizing self from non-self, and you've started to attack. The body started to attack itself, and when that occurs, sometimes it's because your immune resiliency is so high that it missed that it overwhelmed your tolerance, right? And so that's how you were able to develop that autoimmune condition. And so on the flip side, sometimes if you've lost tolerance over time, that starts to lower your immune resistance. And so I wanted to kind of clarify that before we start jumping into a whole lot of like the fine details with things. For my autoimmune patients, and unfortunately we see a lot of them, and autoimmune conditions are on the rise, and perhaps we'll discuss that at some point, as to why that is, or some of the theories as to why that is, at least. But it's definitely something I've seen in practice that there's more and more autoimmune conditions. And of course, with autoimmune conditions, we're talking about things like Hashimoto's, thyroid disease, or rheumatoid arthritis, obviously, or ankylosing spondylitis, or Crohn's disease, or in many cases, irritable bowel disease. A number of those. These are all autoimmune alopecia. There's just type 1 diabetes. There's just a whole lot of autoimmune conditions out there. And so I didn't want you guys to necessarily think that when I said that you've lost immune tolerance, that automatically means that you've lost your resilience as well. And so one of the things we really want to be careful of with autoimmune patients is that we know we've lost some level of tolerance. And what we really don't want to do is assume that we've lost immune resistance or resilience as well. Perhaps your immune resilience is way up here. And we don't necessarily want to be doing a lot of things that's going to push that resilience even higher, because that's oftentimes going to worsen the autoimmune piece of it, right? And so we really want to be careful. And you can have two different people with the same disease. One of them have high resilience, the other one have low resilience. Or even the same person over time will have a tendency to ebb and flow through those resilient times and lower resilient states. And so anyway, I just kind of wanted to clarify that a little bit, for my autoimmune patients, because again, there is so quite a few of you out there. Now, what I will say with my autoimmune patients is there are a lot of immune modulating things that we can still do across the board, and that's what we're going to dive into our next episode. We start to kind of walk this immune support pathway out. And the other thing I'll say from autoimmune patients is, if you're not on an anti-inflammatory diet or a low inflammation diet, you should really consider it, because I can guarantee, no matter what your immune resistance or your immune tolerance is at that point, pretty much across the board, everybody is inflamed if you have an autoimmune condition. So really look back at lesson 2, where we talked about inflammation and trying to balance that pro-inflammatory versus anti-inflammatory state. And so I hope this cleared up a little bit. This one was more towards the autoimmune patients. The next episode is where we're really going to start diving into, okay, what are some real practical steps that each one of us should be taking? So anyway, until next time, stay healthy, stay blessed.